Today, we're going to be talking to Stephanie Bellinger, who is the spiritual boss babe. And I'm so excited that you're here, Stephanie. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
And thank you so much for having me, Ina. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so before we start, because there's so much to cover today, can you tell everyone what is it that you do right now and who you serve right now?
I help spiritual entrepreneurial women really stand out in their business and really just be the fullest expression of their self with everything that they're doing, everything that they're sharing, everything that they're creating in life and in business. And so a lot of what I share and teach is around the energetics of success and really being the highest expression of yourself so that you can be, do, and have anything that you put your mind to. And I'm really passionate about helping people get their message out in the world in a much bigger way. And as many of us know, that comes from the internal work of like really owning it, really being clear, and going all in on your dreams and the work that you're here to do on the planet.
Can you share with us, were you always this enlightened? Was there a time when you didn't think so strongly about this spiritual effect of what our internal thoughts have in our lives?
Yeah. It's funny. I don't really consider myself necessarily as enlightened, but um, I enjoy self-reflecting on my own lessons and patterns and, experiences that have helped me grow. And I've always been into spirituality for as long as I can remember. I got really into angel cards and divination and psychic abilities and energy work, and spirit guides when I was a teenager. I was like 14. But I was in an abusive relationship at that time, and that was like the only place I had to turn. So I went on this expansion journey after that. And eventually, years down the line, I was led to psychedelics and plant medicine. And that really catapulted a lot for me and actually inspired my business and everything that I'm doing essentially, and has helped me shift old paradigms, heal past trauma, unleash and free my voice, open my channel, and be the fullest expression of myself is exactly why I help other people and create life on my terms and be the boss of my own life. And that's what spiritual boss babes really are, the boss of their own life, creating life on your own terms and business of your dreams.
What happened later on? Because you mentioned you had been in an abusive relationship a little
Mhm.
bit later in your teenage years. And for anybody who's listening right now who kind of went through that, maybe like some kind of bullying in school and going into a toxic relationship, what do you think was the attraction to that relationship and staying in that relationship until you were able to break free?
In my senior year of high school, I was really finally starting to come out of my shell. Or sorry, my freshman year of high school. I was starting to come out of my shell and being more outgoing, and finally felt like I was being myself. And then I have always been like really wanting to find love, like for as long as I can remember too. And I met this person and felt wanted finally for the first time in my experience. And, he showered me with all of this love and attention and, everything that people do in the beginning of abusive relationships
Yeah.
until you're in too deep that it just becomes a brainwashing mind fuckery
Yeah.
experience. And my self-esteem at the time was still shaky. I was overweight. I was like self-conscious, all of that stuff. And so I entered that relationship when I was 14, and it quickly got, unhealthy. And it lasted 5.5 years. And I eventually felt like afraid to leave because I was literally scared for my life half the time.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm really grateful for that experience because it helped me really become who I am today. Because during that time, I lost 60 pounds. I started meditating every day. I started really getting into spirituality, and I started doing like, a lot of things inside and out to build the strength to leave that relationship and to follow my dreams. And all of my motivation pretty much stems from that time in my life, because once I lost the weight, I was like, oh, if I could lose 60 pounds in 6 months, I could do anything. It was this belief of, well, anything I put my mind to, I could do it.
Do you feel okay to share what was the final trigger that made you leave the relationship and how that went? I'm hoping that gives courage to some people listening who
Yeah.
might see themselves in that situation. I'd love to
Yeah.
know what happened.
I knew I wanted to leave for a really long time. When we moved in together when I was 19, and the moment I moved in, I was like hysterical. I was like, oh my God, my life is over. Like I was crying. I was so upset. I did not want to do it, but I felt like I had to. But I left him in November. So I moved in like July. I left in November of that year. And I planned it out. I had to really plan it out like way ahead of time, because I was dealing with like a sociopath, like, crazy, absolute, like there's no consciousness that exists when someone like that is enraged. There's no thinking, like it's out the window. So I had to like really plan it out, and I told my close family and friends like that I was thinking of leaving, or that I was going to do it. And I started packing things in suitcases and like hiding them around the house when he was,
Wow.
home. And I started like not really sleeping in the bedroom as much, and just kind of falling asleep early on the couch while I was reading, and just drifting away. And I went to this psychic healer around that time, and I asked her if she could support me with protection, because I told her what I was going to do, and I felt like I needed added protection energetically, for the process. I was planning on leaving him this particular weekend, and when he was at work, I did this like little ritual to drift us apart, cut the cord, let this be peaceful and easy, and all this stuff. So when he got home from work that night, he found out his dad died. So I decided to wait an extra like month or two,
Oh,
because I was like, I'm not going to leave. Like his dad just died and all this stuff. And like I felt like I, should wait. And so I did. And he wasn't very mean during that time, because he was mourning the loss of his dad. So I plan on waiting, and I decided, all right, I'm going to do it this weekend. And I told my mom and everyone. And then Friday, before that Sunday, he came to me and he's like, I have a feeling we're going to break up. We're drifting apart. Maybe we should just go our separate ways and just, end things. And I was shocked. I was like, whoa, like this is so much easier than I thought. So I said to him, yeah, you're right. I was thinking of going to my mom's for a couple weeks and taking a break. And then as soon as I said that, he flipped shit, and was called his mom, was screaming, throwing things. And then I was sitting on the couch, and the way that our apartment was set up, there was like a wall before our kitchen, between the couch. So he went in the kitchen. I couldn't see him in the kitchen, but I watched him walk into the kitchen, and he opened the utensil drawer. And as soon as I heard the utensil drawer open, I knew that I needed to run. So I didn't even have time to think. I just flew out of the apartment barefoot in 30-degree weather in my pajamas. I left my keys. I left my phone. I didn't look behind me. I had no time to look behind me to see, because I knew he was going to chase me.
yeah.
So I ran around the corner, and I knocked on some stranger's door, and I opened it because I didn't have time to wait for someone to open it. And it was unlocked. Like, freaking thank God. It was literally unlocked. And it was this big biker dude and his gothic wife and their two kids. And I was like, hysterical. And then meanwhile, you hear him in the parking lot revving my car engine, screaming crazy shit like, you're gonna die, all this crazy stuff. But as soon as I was in this apartment, I felt like I was finally free, and I was so relieved, and I knew that I was safe.
That is an incredible story. I mean, it's my only hope that anybody who's listening to this who is in kind of a toxic relationship, they have the courage someday to be able to leave, and that it goes well. So nobody gets hurt. Nobody, I mean, that is an amazing journey you went on. So
Yeah.
how do you think that has informed what your relationships were like from that point on? What were some maybe new beliefs that you adopted after that?
Well, I knew for sure I would never, ever, ever end up with someone who would physically harm me or talk to me in the way that he did. Like that, like would never happen. Just absolutely not. Like no fucking way. My new beliefs around relationships, it took a lot of work because I had a lot of healing to do around that. I mean, I'm talking years and years of this is 15 years ago of work. And I did end up in a relationship again that was emotionally abusive. And I didn't realize because that's very, very covert and very challenging to detect
Yeah.
because they're not actually mean. So, yeah, so I entered this emotionally abusive one. But the thing was, I was aware of certain things and not tolerating them, but at the same time, I was still participating in the dynamic for
Yeah.
quite some time until I, finally was like, all right, this is literally toxic. This is literally, it's not healthy, like at all. And did that. And it was one of the biggest heartbreaks I had ever gone through in my life. And it was actually only a couple years ago. And I was like, how the fuck did I end up in this? After all the work I did, after everything I know, after it was really quite strange for me. But in hindsight, I see that it actually drudged up a lot of really old stuff that I still needed to heal and process. And I was able to do that in a way now, or then in a more effective way than I didn't previously know how to process old stuff. So he thankfully, in hindsight, drudged that stuff up. I was able to process it because I have new tools, new awarenesses, a beautiful community of friends and soul family. And yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about people who are listening, especially when they're trying to accomplish something in their life? It could be finding love, right? It could be starting the business of their dreams, and they find themselves locked in patterns. What should they be mindful of? What are some things they should be really, really aware of so they can start to break them?
Really listen to their gut feelings. I think for me, a lot of times I had gut instincts or intuitions, and giving yourself what you desire and need and setting a standard of how you expect to be treated and holding that and not allowing anything less. And so if you do find yourself in a pattern like that again, with someone who is, manipulative, emotionally abusive, whatever, insecure, then that you can recognize their behaviors sooner
Yeah.
because you could recognize your internal feelings sooner, and you cannot tolerate it by speaking about it and setting a boundary. And if they don't respect that, if they don't listen, if they don't honor that or whatever, you're out. I'm very intentional about the people that I surround myself with, and it's easier then to notice when someone's not treating you right when everyone else around you is treating you like a freaking queen, and you could see things earlier on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I would love to know a little bit more about this spirituality that goes into really creating the life you want. So for all of us who are like the type A, who never even turn to see spirituality, who think of spirituality as something completely separate from themselves, which as an expert, it's not. Where does spirituality fit into our lives, and how can we tap into it? What are the tools that we have at our disposal that maybe we haven't even considered
Mm.
before?
Well, I feel like spirituality and really creating the life that you want in all areas, it always comes back to your relationship with yourself and how you feel on the inside and who you express as on the outside. So for me, at the very beginning of my journey, before I even left that toxic relationship, I started learning about self love and developing practices and routines that supported me in opening my heart to myself. And one of those things, of course, was meditation and really being with myself and getting and clearing my mind so that so that I was able to hear the voice of my soul, which is my higher self, the voice of truth, the voice of the intuition, instead of the ego and, listening to all these, limiting beliefs and stories and disempowering concepts of self. When you have an empowering concept of yourself, your reality reflects that in every way, including the money that you're making, the people that you're impacting, the relationships that you have. Everything is a reflection of your inner world. So to me, this spiritual journey isn't so much as, going up in the ethers and connecting to your spirit guides. I mean, yeah, that's the thing you could do, but it's also like, how can I bring more of my soul self, the truth of who I am, back online in this physical vessel to experience the most amount of love I could possibly experience. And I feel like it's a journey of lessons. I like to look for the lessons in every experience, even experiences that I've had that have been challenging or painful. I always seek the lessons. I'm always asking myself, what is this teaching me? What do I need to learn from this that's going to allow me to evolve and expand? And the faster that we learn the lessons, the faster we quantum leap.
Can we switch gears for a minute and talk a little bit about business? So I went back to your story, and it's incredible all the pivots that you've had since the beginning, right? Starting out with health and fitness, beach body, then creating your own crystals and selling your own crystal jewelry, becoming a personal trainer, then independizing yourself, then bartending at the same time that you're launching your businesses. And I'm always very curious to know, talking to someone who has been, launching her business for the past 10 years, right? You've been in business for about 10 years.
I know, it's crazy.
Right? I'm very curious to know, what is your perspective looking back at your entire journey? How do you see it? How do you explain your ups and downs to people? And what can everybody learn from the past 10 years of your life?
There have definitely been a lot of challenges and successes and fear. I remember first starting out with everything, I just felt so motivated and inspired, like anything is possible. You got that new inspiration of, I'm going to create my dream life and business and do whatever it takes. And a lot of people jump out the gates with that excitement, that initial excitement of what's possible. And actually, I want to invite people listening to reconnect to that, because I think it's a really powerful place to be. I just made a post about this the other day of, remember that new excitement you had in the beginning? Like, why not like revisit that and bring that energy into the now when you're, continuing to grow and everything? Because along the way, as we face challenges and failures and ups and downs, and sometimes it can create trauma in your business and like, lose the magic of that new inspiration. So for me, everything I did, I went all in with. And there were points in a lot of those things where I questioned, can I really do this? Is this really going to work? Am I going to fail? Do I really have what it takes? Am I really good enough? Am I really smart enough? And when I was doing my fitness business, when I finally went self-employed, which was the first actual fully self-employed experience, I was so excited because I was living in New York City, and I was like, oh my God, I made it. Like, I'm completely on my own. I am my own freaking boss. I'm making, 5-figure months, living on 23rd and 3rd, like, doing the thing. And it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. I didn't have like this amazing posh lifestyle by any means, but it was a huge milestone. And then I started getting into personal development way more during that time, when I started Beachbody as well, because I didn't want to just be a trainer, and realizing, oh my gosh, I need to work on my mindset. Oh my gosh, I went to this event with Shalene Johnson for entrepreneurs. She was my first change. She's the one who helped me lose 60 pounds at home. And then she was doing these events later on in my life when teaching entrepreneurs how to market their business. I remember when I was 17, I would work out to Shalene in the mornings when I was in that abusive relationship. And I said to myself, man, I wish someday I could be like her. I want to be like her someday and motivate people. And then here I am later on in my 20s, going to her entrepreneur event, Smart Success. Then I got way into the mindset stuff. And that's when I started doing EMDR therapy. I saw someone in New York. I learned about hypnosis. I learned about EFT. I learned about NLP, all tools to reprogram your unconscious mind and shift your energy and heal. And I had to work through these things because I noticed I was having all these doubts of, am I going to be able to keep my business up? Am I going to be able to, succeed? What if I run out of money? All this stuff was coming up. I'm not smart enough. And it was debilitating me. And eventually it debilitated me enough that I ended up getting a side job again, bartending.
Mhm.
And that's also when I realized I wanted to shift and pivot things eventually into my spiritual coaching business. So I learned a lot along the way, is what I'm getting at. It was not always easy, and it still isn't. There's still times when, I have things come up, but that's what happens when we continuously up level. When I quit my jobs, I was scared shitless, but I had to trust and I had to leap into the uncertainty. And, in order to grow your business and be on this journey and be successful, you have to take the leaps. And when I invested, my first mentor was like $25,000 and I paid her in cash. And I didn't have that. I put some on credit cards but I paid her in full. And that was so scary for me because I was not making like crazy money at that time. But I knew inside that it was something that was going to help me. And this is why you got to listen to your intuition. Even when you're making investments, you got to listen to your intuition, not the fear. And so I took that leap and everything worked out. And so you have to learn how to get comfortable with taking leaps. And that's what separates the people who are the most successful from the people who just sit around waiting.
Do you remember the point in your spiritual boss babe business? Maybe it was a particular launch or a particular new client that you signed when you felt, oh my God, this is actually working. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, this is actually a small example because I was still working at my jobs. I was living in Tampa at the time. I was personal training at a boot camp at Orange Theory, and then I was bartending during the day. And I'll never forget this program that I launched. It's called Everyday Magic. And it was only like a $200 program, 300 bucks. And I remember I was working at a shift at the bar during the day and it was completely empty. And then I just saw all these payment notifications coming in. I didn't have a whole lot of people sign up, but I mean, I made like 2,000 bucks in that shift that I was at the bar. And I was like, wow, I'm literally sitting here at an empty bar and I'm looking at my phone, having all of this stuff come in. And so in that moment, I realized, wow, okay, and I could do this. And this is a thing. And my community started growing rapidly, like crazy at that time. And I just decided to go all in.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. And as we're winding down, there's a couple last questions that I like to ask our guests.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one being, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have of you as a successful businesswoman?
The biggest misconception, maybe that I never deal with challenges or struggles like they do. I'm very open and authentic about things like that, but I want to say blood, sweat, and tears that I've had to put into all of this, and that it does take work and it takes consistency and dedication, and it can be easier and more aligned and all of that great stuff, and focus on your vibration and all that stuff that I talk about. And at the same time, it does take work. And so I feel like maybe one of the misconceptions a lot of times is people not they see not just me but other people online as well, and they think, oh, it just comes so easy for them, they had so much success so quickly, or you compare yourself to other people. And just know that myself and other people that you see online, we're human. We have our days, we have our doubts, we have our fears, we have our struggles, we have our freaking crying on the freaking bathroom floor breakdowns. We have everything that anyone goes through. as they're becoming the person they need to become to allow and receive what they want. So I think that's important to know and be aware of, because it's not about being perfect or having overnight success. It's about deciding that you're already successful, that it's already done, that it already is, and then becoming that person.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really feel like everybody needs to hear that from our heroes in particular, that challenges still exist. You know, making 10K months does not solve all of your life's problems, right? Like we need to learn how to deal with challenges at every level. So my last question for you is, if everyone who's listening had to do what you're about to tell them to do, and they have to do it in the next 24 hours, they have no choice, what would that be?
It's funny, the only thing that pops into my mind is dancing in front of the mirror. It's so funny because one of my mantras is the more fun I have, the more money I make. And something I really love to do is mirror work and really just feeling myself and dancing in front of the mirror. And, I think a lot of people get so hung up on doing the work and being behind their computer and figuring out what to post and, focusing on all these little heavy topics, or just like boring things. And one thing that needs to be a priority is your vibration, and nothing shifts your vibration faster than putting on an awesome pump up song, dancing your ass off for like even just one song, being silly in front of the mirror, maybe saying something that you need to hear, and pumping yourself up. So I would suggest to do that, to see how quickly and easily you can shift your state and your vibe, and be silly. And from there, do whatever you got to do.
What's your song?
I have a lot of songs. You know what song I really love that shifts my vibe though? Like, this isn't necessarily, I don't always dance to it, but for any of you who know Activation Vibration on Instagram, she's awesome, Heather. She has a really amazing song called Cellular Upgrade. And it is just, you listen to that song and hear the words and the lyrics. It's pretty potent, the way that it could shift your frequency. So I love listening to that, but I have so many songs, like, and I just grab my hula hoop and do some hoop dancing in front of my mirror, flow. And that's usually how I start my morning.
Nice. I love it. So Stephanie Bellinger, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for going really deep, really personal with us. We really like to get to know you in a really, really personal level. And I thank you so much for your generosity today. It's been really an honor to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I so appreciate it.
So where can everybody go and follow you, find you, and learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So I'm mostly on Instagram these days at The Spiritual Boss Babe. I love connecting with people on there. So if you want to say hi or screenshot this when you listen and tag us in your Insta stories, I always love that. So it's at The Spiritual Boss Babe, or my website, spiritualbossbabe.com. You can find everything there. You can find, my quiz, the different programs and mini courses, and all the things, the podcast, everything's on my site. Super easy to find. We actually just did a full rebrand of the site, and the quiz is new. So I highly recommend taking the Spiritual Boss Babe quiz, because it will show you where you are on the Spiritual Boss Babe journey and what you need to do to quantum leap to your next level. So it's really fun. And it has a lot of cool songs with the quiz. One of the goodies that I share are my favorite songs for each archetype.
Nice. And we're going to put all those links inside the show notes so everybody can go and check them out. Thank you so much, Stephanie. You're the best.
Thank you.